Hi, this is Sherry Colley, and I chose to do a project on three-dimensional shapes as my students absolutely love this unit when we work on it in our math. And so I wanted to just make it more interesting and more challenging also by incorporating technology. The first step would be that the students would be able to identify three-dimensional shapes. They'd know their basic attributes and they'd be able to describe the shapes. The understandings would be that the students would know the characteristics and the vocabulary, and then that they'd also understand that objects in the world are made up of these shapes. And the basic shapes that I would work on first with the students would be the cube, sphere, cylinder, rectangular, solid, and square pyramid. And then they would also learn the vocabulary at the same time. The evidence that I'd be searching for would be that students will be able to identify and classify three-dimensional shapes in a shape book that I will provide for them. They can either draw or cut out shapes from magazines and paste them in correct boxes, or if I could also get a hold of some document cameras in the school, which are limited, I would also allow them to take pictures and then print them out and also paste those into the shape book. And then the students would also be able to or be required to explain the characteristics of the cube, sphere, cylinder, rectangular, solid, and square pyramid using their own descriptions for each three-dimensional shape and using correct attribute vocabulary, which we have already gone over. And of course, before presenting this task to the students, I would go over the rubric with them and explain how they would earn scored points and answer any questions that the students may have before they begin the project. Here's a brief summary of the key learning events I'd like to try with my second graders. I thought a fun hook would be to read aloud Captain Invisible and the Space Shapes, Three-Dimensional Shapes by Remy Simmerd, as my students love hearing stories, and we could also talk about the basic shapes that we're going to be studying in the next unit. I would make sure I tell the students that we're going to be studying specifically three-dimensional shapes. I would do an informal discussion about to pre-assess what students know about three-dimensional shapes. And then I would like to introduce them to 3D shapes by using objects around the classroom or a pre-made web quest. And if I could, I would really like a set of each three-dimensional shape for each student at their desk so they could physically hold them and handle them. And then the students would describe the similarities and differences of each shape. And then I would present a brief explanation of each three-dimensional shape, and I would already have it pre-typed so that the students wouldn't have to copy it down into their shape book, which I will provide for them. And then I would also provide each student with a pre-made drawing or picture that I have created, or they could look through magazines and cut out shapes that match and then paste them in the shape book. The students would self-assess how they did with this activity using a provided worksheet. Then I would ask the students to develop their own definitions in their own words for each 3D shape, as this will help them learn the vocabulary easier. Then I would like the students to work together to define and identify 3D shapes in groups of 4 at centers I have created. And then I would provide shapes of these I would provide pictures of these shapes for students to cut and paste in the classification sheet. I also thought it would be kind of fun if I had them use Comic Life and sort the shapes that way, and that way we could share it with each other and also with parents. I would also like to try a classroom scavenger hunt where my students would take pictures with a digital camera. Of course, these are limited in our school. Or if they choose to, they can cut out pictures from magazines of 3D shapes and place them in the appropriate boxes of a shape book. And I also thought for this, might also be fun for the groups to go on using Comic Life and create their own shape book that we can then share with the class and then allow for them to discuss and then also for students to revise as needed. Um, the shape book would be turned in with all activity work completed for evaluation by me, but I also thought that it would be really cool if I could create an online shape book for each student. That way, the parents can also have access to it and see what we've been learning in geometry and also using technology in the classroom, which I am afraid to do because I'm very technology challenged. And of course, the students will self-assess using a rubric, and I'll provide feedback for them. And I just think it'd be a fun activity if I could use the internet more because that is the area that scares me. Thank you.